Hey guys, welcome back. Well, it's now time for our weekly political segment, Texas Face Off. You can watch it every Tuesday right here on midday. And joining us this morning is Mr. James Dickey, Texas GOP Chairman, and Ed Espinoza, Executive Director of Progress Texas. So guys, thank you all so much for joining us this midday.
Good to be here.
Of course. Well, so beginning today, it's now against the law to use bump stocks. It's a gun attachment that makes firing the gun off faster. What this ban means that they must now either be turned over to the authorities or destroyed. And if not, violators can face up to 10 years in prison or pay thousands of dollars in fines. So my first question, and I'll ask you, is do you think gun owners will abide by this, turning their guns in, their bump stocks in?
Well, I hope so. I mean, this is a device that altered a gun to turn it from a semi-automatic into an automatic weapon. The makers of the bump stocks sold this to the ATF as something that they said would be good for people who had small hands and couldn't reach around the device to pull the trigger. That was how they got it approved in the first place. In reality, what it did was it turned a weapon into a much rapid fire, one that fires much more rapidly. That's the one that the shooter in Las Vegas used. So it's a problem. It's good they're off the market. I hope anyone who owns them does turn them in. I actually don't know that many people own them, but to be honest with you, I don't know what the stats are on those. But I'm glad to see this is progress.
Okay, and then how about you? Do you think?
Well, so first of all, with due respect to my opposition here, a bump stock does not transform a gun. It does make it a little easier to fire it a little faster, but a fast finger works just as well. It does not transform a semi-automatic from a semi-automatic to an automatic. It still requires mechanical action for every pull of the trigger. I think this is yet another one of those steps where it's meant to look good, meant to make people feel good, won't actually have any significant impact on gun safety one way or the other. It's just another chance for government to pass another regulation that makes them look like they're doing something when it's not really addressing the problem.
Okay, and I know this. Rick, we talked about this as well here in Central Texas. We have a gun rights activist, Michael Cargill, he's been very vocal about all this, claiming it violates the Constitution. And so my question is, do you think that argument will hold up in court?
No, because no one's saying you can't have a gun. They're saying you can't have an adjunct that changes the way a gun functions. So what the bump stock does is it attaches to the trigger. So instead of having to pull the trigger multiple times, you hold down the trigger. That's what this device does. It is a device. It is not a gun. Taking away a device does not take away your opportunity to have a gun. So I don't think that argument holds water one bit.
Okay. James?
Yeah, I don't know if or whether or not there'll be a constitutional challenge to this or not, whether it's worth it for this to be the constitutional challenge. The real question are the bigger limits on gun rights and defense rights related to the Second Amendment, and I hope that we will continue to see an expansion. We have seen in numerous other states, we have seen unlicensed carry expand, and in those states we have not at all seen an increase in violence, quite the opposite. And so, never fails the fear-mongering that goes along with gun control efforts. Gun control efforts are not really gun control efforts, they're people control efforts, and like with everything else, the ones who obey the law are the law-abiding folks, not the people who intend to use guns illegally. I mean, we see it every day. Someone who had no right to buy a gun, someone who bought a gun illegally, that's where the crimes are being made, not by law-abiding citizens.
All right. Thanks for both of y'all's input on that. And on to our next topic this morning, a new survey from the nonpartisan research firm PRRI found that 2 in 3 Texans support laws protecting LGBT people from discrimination. 77% of Austinites surveyed said that they support non-discrimination laws, which was percentage out of the states of the 5 biggest metro areas that were surveyed. Now, Senate Bill 17 would protect those licensed by the state, like lawyers and therapists, from acting in ways that violate their religion. Gay rights groups are against that. Do you think lawmakers take polls like this one into consideration?
No, I don't. I think that many times lawmakers who are against this are against it for ideological purposes, and I don't think that they look at polls. If they did, I think that we would have different conversations in the Capitol. Having said that, I hope they do consider that the overwhelming number of Texans are in favor of LGBTQ equality. It is a big issue that is a mainstream issue at this point, and I think that we need to treat our neighbors neighborly. Texas is a friendly state. It is a welcoming state. We are a proud state that relies on our kindness as an identity, and I think that this is part of that. And so I hope that bills that come out of the legislature aren't looking to limit equality, but are looking to embrace equality.
Okay, and James, same question for you. When it comes to polls like this, do you think lawmakers are taking them into consideration?
Well, of course, lawmakers take everything into consideration, most importantly, the input of their constituents. But, you know, it's kind of crazy to run a poll saying, you know, are you for non-discrimination? I'm frankly shocked that if you asked, are you for non-discrimination, I'm kind of surprised it's not 95% who are in favor of non-discrimination, because that's a crazy question. That's like, you know, are you for apple pie and America? I would hope the numbers would be really huge. The more important thing here in this question is, are we respecting individual rights? And the bill that's coming through is not about discriminating against LGBTQ. It is about defending our First Amendment rights of freedom of association, freedom of religion, freedom of speech. The question is never, do we want to discriminate or do we want to cause problems for any group of people? It's how do we balance those rights, especially those rights that are specifically, explicitly enumerated in the Constitution. And so this Senate bill just does a good job of respecting that right. Just as many people would say, if you asked, are you in favor of forcing people to have to do things against their strongly held beliefs, an even higher percentage would say, of course we're not for that. And that's all this Senate bill does, is say we are not going to risk taking people's license and livelihood away if they cannot be forced to do what we want them to do.
Okay. Well, James and Ed, thank you so much for coming on and talking about these topics with